Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're making Gulerodsbrød or carrot bread. We grew up eating carrot rolls and so we decided why not make a loaf version as well. It has grated carrot and sunflower seeds and it makes for a great combination. Let's get started. The first thing we're gonna do to make our bread is bloom our yeast. It's basically just the process of checking that your yeast is working. In this measuring cup, I have 200 milliliters of lukewarm milk. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of yeast. I'm using instant yeast. We can use active dry or fresh yeast. With instant yeast, you don't necessarily need to bloom it before adding it to the bread, but I'm just gonna show you the process today anyway. If you're in doubt, there are usually instructions on the packet of yeast that you're using. This recipe calls for 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. So I have that measured out in this little bowl and I'm just gonna add a small amount to this. You don't need to add it all. And then we'll stir to dissolve. It doesn't need to be perfect and there still might be some chunks of yeast in there, but we're gonna let this sit for 5 to 10 minutes and then come back and check on it. While the yeast is sitting, I like to grate the carrot that's gonna go in this carrot bread. This is 1 large carrot that's peeled and washed. If you want to be a little more precise about it, it's about 80 grams of grated carrot. It's time to check back in on our yeast and we're seeing a good amount of foaming and bubbles on the top, and that means that your yeast is good to go. If you don't see anything at all, I would add a little bit more sugar, wait another 5 minutes, and if there's still no activity at all, I would get new yeast and start over. I'm using a stand mixer to knead my dough today. You can definitely use a bowl and just knead by hand. To make the dough, we have our yeast mixture, the carrot that we grated, along with 35 grams of sunflower seeds. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 egg yolk. Oh, and I almost forgot the rest of our sugar. And we're combining this all in the bowl that we're going to knead in. I'm just gonna stir this together to roughly combine it. I have my stand mixer set up and we're gonna use the dough hook attachment. I've measured out 350 grams of all-purpose or bread flour and I'm gonna add it to the bowl. The last thing going in is 3 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter. I'm gonna knead this for around 10 minutes. It's only been a few minutes, but if the dough is sticking to the sides and the bottom a lot, just add a few more tablespoons of flour and keep kneading. After about 10 minutes, the dough should be nice and elastic. I can press on it without it sticking to my hands. And now it's ready for its first rise. Just gonna cover the dough in some plastic wrap. I'm gonna set this aside and let it rise for around 45 minutes to an hour. Right before the dough is done rising for the first time, we're gonna prepare our loaf pan. I like to use a medium-sized loaf pan for this bread. And I'm just gonna butter the bottom and then add a piece of parchment paper that lays across it so that it's easy to remove the bread when it's done baking. Make sure to save the piece of plastic wrap for the loaf. Our dough has risen, it is nice and airy, and when you poke it, it should leave a nice little indent in the dough. We're gonna turn it out onto our clean work surface. Shaping this is gonna be super easy. I'm going to press this dough into a rough rectangle shape, and I want the width of it to be the width of my loaf pan that I'm using. So I can double check this, that it's not going beyond, and that it's gonna fit in the loaf pan. And I'm trying to get this fairly even just so that the loaf is even in size. All right, and now from one end, I'm just gonna start rolling it up as tightly as I can And that's gonna create nice tension on the surface of the loaf, making it rise evenly. I'm just kind of rolling and pressing it in to make sure it's staying the same size. And now that I'm at the end, I'm gonna roll it around on the surface a few times to try to close up the seam on the bottom. It's kind of a weird technique, but it works to create this nice tension. And you shouldn't really be able to see much of a seam at all on the bottom. And now we're ready to transfer it into our loaf pan. I have my plastic wrap from before, and I'm just going to cover this as well as I can. The parchment paper makes it a little bit difficult. And now I'm gonna set this aside and let it rise for around 30 minutes. Before the loaf is done rising, we're gonna preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Our dough has definitely doubled in size. Before it goes in the oven, I'm gonna egg wash it. An egg wash is just one egg with a little bit of water whisked together. And normally I would use a brush to brush it on, but I don't have mine right now. So I'm just going to try to use a fork. This is ready to go in the oven for around 30 minutes. The bread is done baking. It has a nice hollow sound when you tap it, and it's also nicely golden brown on the top. I'm gonna remove it from the pan and let it cool on a wire rack for at least 20 minutes. Our bread is cooled down, so now let's slice it. It's time to try a piece. Definitely adding a layer of butter to this. It's super soft and it's slightly sweet because of the carrots, and then the sunflower seeds give it a nice nutty flavor. Thank you so much for watching our video. We hope you make this bread, and we'll see you for the next video. Bye!